And for the last 2 years, not a single person of color has been nominated.
Hollywood is facing a backlash for its lack of diversity at the Academy Awards. No minority actors or actresses have received nominations in any of the Oscars' 4 major acting categories, prompting some to boycott the show.
If you're an Asian woman, you have the biggest complaint. Or or a Native American woman, you know, they're not represented at all. So diversity isn't just about black and white.
Hello, I'm Nathan King, filling in for Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. As Hollywood prepares to honor the best in film at the 88th Academy Awards, a new report has put Tinseltown's lack of diversity in the spotlight. The Bunche Center for African American Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles finds women and minorities in Hollywood are underrepresented industry-wide, both in front and behind the camera. Hollywood studios haven't been casting minorities, despite surveys showing viewers prefer films and TV programs that have moderate diversity. And by the way, half a dozen studios, including Disney and Time Warner, helped pay for this report. My colleague Mei Lee recently discussed this issue with 2 television and film actors for CCTV's Full Frame.
Being East African, my personal story is that I have a very different look. I think that people don't really know what I am or where I'm from, and they can't really put me in, you know, I've heard, like, are you African American? Are you Indian? Are you Middle Eastern? We need to put you in a box. And I've many times not told people where I'm from, necessarily casting-wise, because it shouldn't matter. I think that the best talent should always get the job.
You know, have a real lack of diversity, particularly in the movie industry, from the you know, who runs the studios,
yep,
to you know, producers, to directors, and to actors who are getting jobs, and so by extension to the movies that are getting made. I would say it's one thing to protest, and I agree with it, and I think I'm really glad that people are speaking out as loudly as they can, mm-hmm, but I think it's also up to creators to bring the ideas.
Yeah.
Because we're the content providers.
Well, joining us now from Los Angeles is Ana Cristina Ramon. She's the Assistant Director of the Bunche Center for African American Studies at the University of California, LA, and the co-author of the Hollywood Diversity Report. And here with us in our Washington, D.C. studio next to me is Dan Pearson. He's the president of D4 Entertainment and recently signed with Showtime to produce a series on the Italian Mafia. And also with us from New York is Roger Ross Williams. He was the first African-American director to win an Oscar for his film Music by Prudence, which won the 2010 Academy Award for Documentary Short Subject. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with you, Ana Cristina, because you co-authored this report. What did it say? Yes. White men making safe choices, as one person put it?
Yes, this is the third in a series of reports that examines the relationship between diversity and the bottom line. And so our report this year is titled Business as Usual, just because we found that minorities and even women continue to be woefully underrepresented in most of the major categories in terms of leads, in front of and behind the camera.
I want to go to Roger Ross Williams because you are a rarity to win an Oscar in the first place, but as a person of colour, an even bigger rarity, as we know from the numbers. First of all, what does it feel like to have an Oscar, and why aren't more people of colour having them?
Well, it feels great to have an Oscar, and I think more people of color don't have them because the gatekeepers in Hollywood, the people who make the decisions, the voters, they want to have people that look like them, that have stories that they can identify with, not stories and not people that look like me.
Well, Dan, this is interesting because we're becoming much more of a diverse country here in the United States. More and more people are diverse going to the movie theaters. Doesn't this make good business sense for them to actually get on the train here? I mean, it's not 1955 anymore.
Says who? I mean, you know, I concur with him about people, they see their own things and that's what they relate to. I, for one, when I create something, and that is the key, I create I'm in a position where I hold on and I dictate what I want and what I don't want. So when I have a new show that I'm creating, it's for women, by women, of women, so it will be directed by a woman, the screenplay by women, and starring women.
Have you felt racism? I mean, you're an expert on the Italian mafia. Do they sometimes say to you, hang on a minute, what's a
Well,
black
you know,
guy doing?
I created a show and did 22 episodes, and I create the whole thing, put it together. Before, the show was bought before they met me. And then when I met with the network, and I walked in the door and I said, excuse us, you're in the wrong place. I said, oh, I'm Dan Pearson. Now look, so what do you know about the mafia? What do you know about Sanford and Son? I mean, you know, life is what it is.
Ana Cristina, I want to pick up on that because there's been a huge reaction to this year. Obviously, no nominations for actor or actress. Again, the same last year. But is it right to sort of try and call for a boycott of the Oscars? Aren't they a symptom of the disease rather than the disease?
Yes, exactly. They are a symptom of the disease because they're just one part of the process that occurs in Hollywood in terms of what gets made, what gets funded, who gets cast in certain roles, and who's making the decisions. And so the Oscars, obviously, it has its own issues in terms of its Academy membership, which the Academy is trying to address as of late. But it's definitely just one part of the process. The main issue that, in terms of underrepresentation and the discrimination that occurs very early on in the process.
You're right to mention the changes because it seems like they were pretty spooked by this boycott the Oscars campaign, and they pledged by 2020 to have more minorities, more women in it. Roger Ross Williams, do you think boycotting the Oscars is the right way to go, or do you try and reform it from within? You get a vote.
Yes, I get a vote. I think that, you know, we should do everything we can to change the status quo. So I think that boycott is fine, and working from within. I think it's, you know, for me, it's important that as a member of the Academy that I push change, that I actually work within the system and actually force them to, like, you know, think about these things. And maybe the Academy can lead the way in this.
I just want to go to Dan again. Where do you think change can come from? Within the Academy or outside of the Academy? And also, Chris Rock, a very famous black comedian, is going to be chairing the live show. What can he do to kind of put pressure on the Academy live on TV as well?
Be unpredictable, which he will be, but be unpredictable. You know, it is about inclusion, not exclusion. I mean, when you include people, you don't see the disabled, but you see them every day in the street when you're walking down the street. You see the same characters, the same look. That is not who we are as a people. As American people, we are each and every one. So the pressure should be from in and out. The change should want to come from inside, because if there is a boycott, and people of color, which means not necessarily black people, but people of color, all colors get together, it hurts in the pocket, change will come about.
But it won't hurt in the pocket as your...
No, it will hurt the pocket.
In what way do you mean?
Well, if people of color took a weekend off of going to movies.
I see what you're saying.
Guess what will happen? Change will happen really fast.
Right.
Because it's somewhat like the Montgomery bus situation. When the people stopped riding the buses, it hurt the pocket, no matter how they felt.
But didn't that happen in the 1950s, where
Yes,
African Americans in Harlem turned off their TV sets, I think, on a Saturday night to say, look, there are not enough people of color in this. I want to just go to...
Excuse me, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right. Can I bring in Ana Cristina Ramon here? Because Dan had a good point, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We've seen, for example, Eddie Murphy at the Oscars. We've seen Richard Pryor at the Oscars. We even saw Neil Patrick Harris last year saying, oh, this is Hollywood's best and whitest. Oh, sorry, brightest. So it's a reoccurring theme, but things don't seem to change.
Yeah, there's definitely peaks and valleys in terms of what goes on in the industry. And what happens is that the people in positions of power are usually white males, and where they are white males. And what happens is that if there is an instance where movies that have minority leads or a majority minority cast do well, they often are rationalized in terms of saying like, oh, this is just one instance, this is just because of these particular circumstances that movie did well. Let's keep investing in what we've always invested in, and let's make these other projects be exceptions to the rule. And so then in those cases, what happens is that then the status quo just remains the same, and the culture never changes in Hollywood because those that are in positions of power don't want to lose that power.
I'm interested you talk about roles. One of our producers came up with this statistics, which I thought was all 10 performances in which black women have received Best Actress nominations involve poor and lower income characters, and half of those have been penniless mothers. Black men have been up for Best Actor Oscars only 20 times. 13 of those characters, their characters were arrested in the films. 15 were violent. Can I put this to Roger Ross Williams? It's the stereotyping too, which is very interesting here.
Yeah, well, welcome to Hollywood. That's what Hollywood's all about, stereotyping. And, yes, that's what they can identify with. That's the way they see black people. They're poor, they are drug dealers, and I think it's shameful that's what we're winning awards for. A lot of black actors have done amazing roles, but they don't get recognized. They get recognized for, Denzel Washington gets recognized for playing a crooked cop, or, so it's shameful.
Dan, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the absent is the black hero. We are not victims. We are everyday people like anyone else. They're two-parent homes. Kids go to school. We are not all tap dancers and rappers. I'm a father. I'm a proud father. But that's not what's shown. What's shown is the broken person. When you look down at someone, you have their foot in their throat, it makes you feel better about yourself. And that's what's going on. And so, as we digress and go into politics, you see some of the things that Trump says. He gets away with it, and people... And why? Because he's saying things that they want to say, and they have someone out there saying it. And so, movies...
You mean dog whistling, right?
The dog whistle. Yeah. The dog whistle. I mean, there are certain places I go, certain cities I go, I make sure I have a white friend with me because I need someone to say, hey, he didn't do that. It's wrong, but it is what it is. We're in America.
Really interesting. Anna, I was hoping we could get through a show, by the way, without mentioning Donald Trump, but we failed. Ana Cristina Ramon, so is there a magic bullet here? How do we change things over time?
Yeah, what we write about in our report is that there is no one magic bullet. Obviously, if there was, then it would be easy just to put that out there, and then everything would be.
Because quotas wouldn't work. For example, you have to, get 20% of roles. So what suggestions do you have?
Well, it's basically what we advocate for is that the change needs to occur at the top. And so in terms of who's at the top, who are the big power players, it's the executives, it's the agents, who are they? And what we found in the past couple of years when we actually examined the executive suites and we examined the agencies this year, we find that the majority are white and the majority are male. And so it's obviously a no surprise to anybody, but we found a way to document it. And by documenting it, we show then that there does need to be a change, because once you begin to diversify the power players, then those people, those diverse viewpoints, then can make a way into the decision making and into the green lighting that happens at the top. That is important in order to create diverse roles, to fund diverse stories, and that's what's definitely needed to occur. It has to start, and it has to be something that probably will be a bit of a dramatic change, but it has to start, as soon as it can, because it might take several years to make a difference, but it needs to happen. And there is no need for necessarily a quota but there is that talent that's out there, and if there's not enough talent out there, then there needs to be more mentorship to get that talent, to get those young executives to the top level. But there are definitely people out there that are working in this industry now. They just need to get the opportunity.
I'm glad you talked about mentorship, but Roger Ross Williams, I'm sure you're a mentor to many. What's your advice for up-and-coming, black and female wannabe filmmakers to make it in this world?
I mean, I think it really, needs to start in film schools, and we need to encourage black African Americans or people of color to actually want to go into the industry. I mean, for me, having won an Oscar, I just won the directing award at Sundance, and I got no phone calls from any agent. I don't have agent representation. I'm invisible to Hollywood, and I think she's right. I think that it's going to change when studio executives, when agents are people of color who can identify with people like me.
Fascinating discussion. We've got to take a break, and during our break, a look at some of the films and performances potentially overlooked at this year's Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Oscar. Stay with us. You're watching The Heat.
I found a disease that no one has ever seen. Repetitive head trauma chokes the brain.
Every punch I ever thrown has been on my own. Nobody showed me how to do this. I'm ready.
All of you that have seen your family killed, you now have something that stands for you. It has put the weapons of this war back in your hands of youth, the young.
You're listening to Compton's very own Ice Cube, Eazy-E, and Dr. Dre. I gotta tell you, you are witnessing history. People are scared of you guys.
The Beast of No Nation there, and then Straight Outta Compton. 2 films snubbed this year in acting categories of the Oscar. Let's get back to our panel. Dan Pearson here in the studio. Which one of those films, or any other, do you think has been overlooked? I mean, obviously we said Straight Outta Compton there, but there was Creed, there was Concussion.
I love Creed.
That's the one where...
I love Creed. I love Creed. And Beast of No Nation. Beast of No Nation. Children soldiers. I mean, come on.
Yeah, child soldiers in West Africa,
soldier,
yeah.
But they, a 65-year-old white guy who's making decisions sees that child and he doesn't relate because that child does not look like his child. And it's still reflective. We're human. We resonate with what we feel close to. And it may seem as though I'm harboring on race, but it is true. It's everyday life.
And it's important in these studies that they say time and time again, and I'm going to put this to Ana Cristina Ramon, that it's very important for people to see themselves in movies, or people that feel and look like themselves, correct?
Yeah, definitely. It's important for people to see themselves. In terms of just even thinking about TV, that's the medium that is actually the most popular still. People say that the internet is obviously becoming more and more popular, but people actually watch TV more than anything else out there, any other medium. And so that's still the source for most people to find out what's going on in the world and to understand what the world is like. And so when you only see a certain group represented, then you think that the world is only portrayed in that way. Then you think that the world is a certain way. And if you don't see yourself in that picture, then you have no way to reference what's going on in your life if that's something that is common, there's no way to kind of feel that you are being represented in the world.
Yeah, it's a mirror sometimes, isn't it? It's quite incredible. Roger Ross Williams, I'm glad you mentioned TV, by the way, Ana Cristina, because TV seems to be doing such a better job than Hollywood in terms of diversity and original programming. Netflix and Amazon. I mean, I'm thinking of the Orange is the New Black. Blackish. If anyone caught the last episode about police violence, that was incredibly powerful. Scandal, Empire. I could go on. Let's go to Roger Ross Williams. Why is TV doing such a better job, according to analysts on this?
I think because TV's serving and the audience of you know, this is America is a diverse country, and they're serving America. So these are what people want, the kind of shows people want to see. It's amazing because Netflix actually is really sort of, you know, pushing the boundaries with Beast of No Nation, and I mean Netflix made a big play this year at Sundance for Nate Parker's film Birth of a Nation, and you know I think like really sort of a lot of the groundbreaking stuff, a lot of the pushing of boundaries is coming from like Netflix and Amazon.
But also the networks are getting involved. I mean, Scandal, I must admit I'm a huge fan, Dan, but you know, I didn't realize until recently it's the first black female lead on television in nearly 40 years. That's quite incredible.
What was the last, Julia?
I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm British. I didn't grow up here, but it's that just popped out of me.
You know, I'm happy to see Fresh Off the Boat, even though I don't like the title, but I'm happy.
That's the one about Asian Americans,
right? I love the kid on the show.
It's hilarious. We did a whole show on that.
I love seeing other people. I love seeing the diversity of families, because when you look back in a family, we're all one people. Some are lighter, some are darker, some are chubbier, some are skinnier, some are smarter. I want to see the whole gumbo. That's what I want to see. But Hollywood wouldn't see that, because the first thing they say is the bottom line, the bottom line, the bottom line. But black movies make money.
But not all movies do make money, do they? I mean, you know, you spend a lot of time in LA.
They take the money made with the black films and pump it into a white film that doesn't make any money.
Ana Cristina Ramon.
Yeah, that's what our study shows.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our study actually shows just, I was referring to it earlier in the terms of the relationship between diversity and the bottom line. And so when you look at our findings, you see that movies that are more diverse make more money at the box office and have a higher rate of return on the investment. So in terms of how much they cost to make in their budgets, and then the box office profits that they made, movies that are pretty diverse in terms of having casts that have about 40 to 50% minorities, those movies actually perform the best in terms of box office success and rate of return on investment.
Do you have any examples of movies that did that?
Well, one example that everyone is aware of is the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Right.
And so that wasn't in our particular report this year, but every time that it's come up in our reports, obviously that movie is the best example of all. And when you look at movies like Ride Along, any of the movies that have come out recently with black leads, they've actually done extremely well at the box office in terms of, especially when you compare it to the budgets that they had. And so the profitability is very high for those movies, and that's something that definitely makes business sense to invest in movies like that, because they bring in the dollars, and so obviously for if it's show business, there's the word business in there, so you want to make money, right? And so it's in the best interest of these studios to invest in movies that have diverse casts with diverse stories.
Roger Ross Williams, can you pick up on that? Because in the report, it basically suggests that there's this false notion as well, this sort of trade-off between diversity and excellence. And what Ana Cristina just said is completely opposite.
Yeah. I mean, in the documentary world, for example, we cover social issues, and you would think, because a lot of documentaries are about underserved communities, are about injustice, and most of the people making those documentaries are white filmmakers. There are very few African American or even people of color making documentaries. It's not a diverse, you would think it would be a diverse community, but it's not.
Dan, obviously we've talked about the Oscars. They're happening on Sunday night. Its audience was down 16% last year. Do you think that has something to do with the fact that they're just not representing everyone who might be watching?
I think that young people will lead the way to change. And when they're in power, it'll be fresh, it'll be new. It's stale. In my opinion, it's stale. So, you need fresh blood, fresh views, fresh opinions, new movies, new leads, new characters, diversity. You go, young people listen to music, they go to a show, you look at the audience, it's a mix of everyone. But then you look at the television or a movie, you see one people. And that's the majority of the time. So, in my opinion, young people are going to lead the way.
And Ana Cristina Ramon, what do you advise people to do post-Sunday? Because, you know, the social media campaign will hit its full height, of course, as the Oscars go out. But come Monday morning, what do you do with the campaign?
Well, one thing to consider in terms of who the audience is, who are moviegoers. When you look at frequent moviegoers, 51% are minorities, and Latinos in particular oversample in terms of frequent moviegoers, and so the minority audience really wants to go to the movies and wants to find a movie then that they can also relate to, want to see themselves, they want to see themselves represented on the big screen, and so they're there, they're hungry, they're ready for those types of movies to be made. And so you can only imagine that if they're already frequent moviegoers, how much more money you can make if you do have movies that are more diverse.
I just want to, sorry, we're just running out of time, and I want to talk about types of movies. Just quickly, 30 seconds, Dan, we've got for all. What is the movie that should win the Oscar over the weekend?
The Revenant and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay, and Ana Cristina Ramon?
I think The Revenant has, they're trending, and they're probably going to win.
Roger Ross Williams, who would you like to see win?
Absolutely The Revenant.
Well, that's interesting because they actually had Native Americans cast in that, speaking their own language. So maybe that is a bit of diversity in there. Fascinating discussion. That's all we have time for. For more on the 88th Academy Awards, log on to our website, cctv-america.com. I'm Nathan King in Washington, D.C., and thanks for watching The Heat.